Hello, today we will review FX, commodities and the current state of the equity bull run. We will first start with the euro dollar with this hourly chart or the perspective over the next few weeks. The current weakness is possibly not quite over yet. We still have a potential in terms of time and targets. There's probably a week or a week and a half to go. And our targets are leading us below 110, where we already are, down to possibly 108.50. The risk index is not yet oversold, which confirms that there is more risk to go. Looking at the longer term perspective, or this daily chart, or the perspective over the next few months, we can see that we have been correcting down since the month of May, and that we're slowly getting into the targets of this correction. Also in the levels of 108.50. We believe the euro dollar should find support around these levels. If it were to break below it, we should probably be considering levels towards the 102, 103 level. At the moment, the risk index is really in the middle of the range, so is more likely to follow this trend down. Looking at the longer term perspective with this weekly chart, we could see that we were in a correction up, but this correction up has been quite weak since 2015. And the time allocated for this correction up is pretty much over, so we're entering again a zone of risk. That said, the risk index is already well oversold, so we don't think there's that much potential down in this last move, but possibly, as we said on the daily, possibly towards 102, 103. Now, putting everything into perspective, we're in a weak bull on the weekly and we're in bears on the daily and on the hourly. So we are in a consolidation period in what is a very weak uptrend. At the moment, weak uptrend, correction down. Watch out if we move below 108.50, and we should go test these 108 levels with the hourly over the next few weeks. Now, moving on to cable, about 1 month into Brexit, we could see that we're still in 3 bears at the moment, so a potential continuous downtrend. We believe it's still too early to really take a medium to long-term position here. The weekly update still has potential over the next few quarters. We're just entering the oversold level. This potential leads us possibly into the 124 area. The dailies is pretty much exhausted for now, but we don't have confirmation here on the risk index, which is still in the middle of the range. So this could follow the weekly down. And the hourly over the next few weeks, although it's bouncing off oversold, would still have some potential down, possibly into the 125 levels. So it's still at risk here on cable over the next few weeks, months and quarters. Now, quickly turning to commodities, we can see that the dollar has been very strong. This has triggered an intermediate correction on oil. We still believe we are hanging on to an uptrend here on the daily, and that in the context of a weekly which had pretty much exhausted its impulsive down moves. So we still believe in this nascent uptrend, but at the moment we're just seeing an intermediate setback. And this setback is visible here on the hourly and could bring us down, possibly down to 44, in extreme cases down to 42. The risk index is already oversold, so we're slowly getting towards exhaustion here. Flipping on to equity markets, this is the hourly chart of the S&P or the mini S&P futures. And what we could see is that over the last few weeks, we're really lingering on. We had the breakout above previous highs, and we're holding on to it and making it a bit higher. There's still a bit of potential, possibly up to 2200, but in essence, we've already entered the target zone. Now, moving on to the daily chart, we still have some potential over the next few months and possibly up to 2300. Yet you could see that we're in quite a lot of exaggeration at the moment here with both our envelopes touching each other and our risk index in the overbought. So although this move doesn't seem quite over yet as we've seen on the hourly, we believe that towards the end of this month and in August we should see some retracement, possibly making it back to where it broke out around the 2100 mark. The weekly chart, or the perspective over the next few quarters, you could see that we've had exaggerations here last year and a pretty high risk index, and since then we've been consolidating. This seems to be forming a base to move higher, and hence the recent breakout. But you could also see a bit of exaggeration here on the envelopes, so we believe that at some point we should work our way down a bit. The 2100 seems like a good level to move back up towards the second half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter this year. So with three bulls, it's a potential continuous uptrend. We would just put a small flag here, warning flag, with this exaggeration here and this exaggeration here, which could bring some retracement. But in essence, we're still good, possibly at least until the end of the year. Finally, on gold, gold has been correcting up since the end of 2015, and it has reached the zone which for this correction up. At the moment, we would believe that we probably reached an intermediate top here, and we're starting to retrace. The daily is not quite there yet. We've had this initial retracement, but there's a bit more time left and a bit more target potential, up to 1400. So we could see a bit more work here into the month of August, especially if equity markets retrace a bit. Yet it is an expensive on our risk index level. It is an overbought here, so don't expect too much potential up. It's really a last move up that we could envisage here on gold. Finally, on the hourly chart, or the perspective over the next few weeks, we could see here the correction down on gold. As this correction down has reached its target, we're not yet oversold. This last move up we were talking about on the daily would really happen if we were able to stay above these corrective targets. So we wouldn't want to see it below 1306 or 1307. If we were to move below it, we would be going into impulsive territory for this hourly, in which would probably trigger a more long-lasting reversal on the daily. Thank you very much, and that's all for this week.